Good evening, everyone. Happy Monday to you. I hope this is a terrific day. I hope it's been a terrific start to your Thanksgiving break. And I'll probably be on live one more time this week to wish you a happy Thanksgiving. But, if I don't see you anytime this week, then I'll say happy Thanksgiving to you tonight. So happy Monday. Hope all is well. Yeah, we're just going to be talking about artistic legacy. We're going to be talking about artistic legacy. I think there have been examples in recent news and also just in the last 10 years, really, to be honest. I'm kind of putting that window, that time frame. But we have seen recent examples of the news of celebrities being threatened or, as they say, canceled. With cancel culture. And again, if I talk about politics, it's only in relation to the topic at hand, which we're going to be talking about artistic legacy. We're going to be talking about J.K. Rowling first. But before we do that, let's just go ahead and welcome the chat and thank you, Big Al. Big Al says, sounds good. That's good. Actually, let's see. So everything's going well here. And if it sounds good, I'm just gonna trust you. I'm not gonna test myself. I feel kind of strange without my headphones, but I'm trying to do this format without the headphones. Especially with these things, they're so thick and they're great, but they can really heat up the head. So I'm trying to just kind of be casual without the headphones. But I'm also in a very quiet room, comparably since moving, so I'm not distracted by outdoor noises or noisy neighbors. So I don't need my headphones for that. Anyway, let's go ahead and welcome the chat. Actually, let me start with my wonderful, handsome prof. It's actually, he says, I look great, look amazing in that blue shirt. It looks kind of blue, maybe, but it's actually purple. It's that purple shirt I wore earlier today. And I'll say disclaimer, it is a little warm, so if I get really heated, then I probably should take a break and switch to a t-shirt or something like that. But I'm also a naturally cold person. All right, let's go ahead and get started with welcoming the chat. Dr. Y is first. Discussing the infamous British author whose name reminds me of the text lingo. JKROFL. I like the first two initials look. I'm actually going to do that with my space opera if I have a writer name. My name, if you guys don't know my full name, I won't disclose it really or present it on the public square. I mean, it's not really that big of a deal, but it's very much a baby boomer name, or it sounds like the nice girl next door. And I'm not edgy by any stretch of the imagination, but I'm also writing science fiction that involves a lot of psychology and some warfare and stuff like that. So I don't really want to strike the audience as, oh, this baby boomer writes sci-fi. I bet it has a lot of Karen messages. So I'm actually going to use my first initials for my name. I've always liked that look. It has kind of a distinguished look that I really do appreciate. And my handsome prof here says, hello, my dear Sound Engraver. Today's mantra is sadly, let the past die, kill it if you have to. I look forward to hearing your thoughts. And I think that's the theme. The threat, this underlying threat in this generation to replace and destroy someone's legacy. We're seeing this with historical figures, and we're seeing it in this example just a little bit, not quite, but it's enough of an example to talk about tonight. We're seeing this with J.K. Rowling. So let's also welcome Furry Old Dog. Nice to see you. Go Team Ghost Planet Go with the wonderful avatar. And Daniel Heron saying awesome people of YouTube land. And we've got Wolf 10. Oh, hey there, Sound Engraver. Hello, Wolf 10. Good to see you. Good to see you. Let's see what you have to say. Ah, yes. Let us discuss how someone can be removed from their art baby and just be disowned by a mob of fake fans. This is quite disturbing. I mean, yeah, we'll talk about kind of fans. I'll say right now. We'll continue with the chat. Let me say right now, I don't think it's going to be a strict cancellation of J.K. Rowling. I think she's going to be beloved by her readers. She always will have a large audience. So I'm not very much concerned for her career welfare per se. It's just the action of what we're seeing because lesser known authors or artists in general can actually be stigmatized and really get their careers, their livelihoods threatened, and the artists can be forced to find other work. So, as far as it being precarious for J.K. Rowling herself, I don't think so. I think she will always have her readership for as long as she publishes books. Even the contemporary novels that she's dabbled in. I think there was one. I think it was a contemporary mystery or something like that. I heard that it wasn't popular, but for as long as she's going to be writing, she's going to have her base. She's going to have her readership. So I'm not too concerned, but it's still worth talking about. And then let's see, Ace Murvik, is that Danish or German? I don't think it's German, but I'm not. I'd love to know the nationality of that surname. And then Final Fantasy fan 12, nice to see you. And Big Al, my friend, nice to see you too. And Gigawatt, wonderful. Hello to you. And yeah, Dr. Y says the two initial thing is what I'm going to do. That's why I became DR Y, or I know I kind of refer to you as Dr. Y, and if you want to correct me on that, let me know. And Zetopia is in the house, and Vessel of Amala sounds very interesting. Welcome. Reminds me of the meme where a person has a party and after everyone arrives, they kick the owner out saying there's no room. Yeah, it's a very interesting situation. So let's I'll give you a few disclaimers before talking about this, and I would love to hear your thoughts on it as well. And John Hansen is in. Welcome. So, a couple disclaimers. The first is I don't know the ins and outs of this story. I know a few things where I picked up on some articles and some headlines, just strictly articles. I haven't even watched any news commentary on it. So I don't know the ins and outs of exactly what's going on. So this is more of a speculation. The second is I'm seeing this from speculation, but also objective, through an objective lens, because actually I'm not really a Harry Potter fan. I've seen all the movies and I appreciate the movies. My mom and two sisters really loved the books. They do really enjoy her stories there. But I'm actually not really a fan in that I've read the books. I've never picked up the books. I know how famous they are. It was just something, I think after reading Lord of the Rings, I stopped reading fantasy. I just kind of got into the science fiction kick a little early on. But actually the Harry Potter books were out 20 years ago. So I was just getting into high school. So I think I just got the impression that Harry Potter was really more for the younger crowd. But that's not to say that I can't have, some speculation or offer some speculation on what's going on with the news. But I'm actually not a fan of Harry Potter like I would be a fan of Star Wars, for instance. I appreciate what Harry Potter, the phenomena has been, the cultural phenomena it's been, but I'm not an actual fan of Harry Potter. I can take it or leave it. And if someone invited me, say, hey, let's watch these movies, I'm like, yeah, sure, we'll watch those movies. Actually, the last time I watched the movies, it was my roommate and I, about 7 years ago, we spent Halloween just going through all 7 movies. I'm not the whole day. I think we broke it into 2 days, but I remember she and I chowing down on Sour Patch Kids and just going through all the Harry Potter movies for Halloween. So I have very fond memories of those films. And actually, we're talking about the films more than the books because it has to do with the 20th anniversary of the release of the first film, The Sorcerer's Stone. So there's that. I'm saying this not really as a Harry Potter fan, so I probably won't be biased in my speculation. Like I maybe could be, Star Wars and have those, opinions. So there's that. And what was the other thing I was going to disclaim? The the other thing is whatever I have to say about J.K. Rowling, I'm totally neutral on her as a person. I understand she is more of a uh, left-leaning feminist, which I don't identify as, but I don't disregard her comments as anything like a nuisance. I'm not against what she says. Apparently, she's had maybe I think a couple of years ago, she had recently some very controversial tweets regarding the trans community, and actually that's what's causing this decision of HBO Max to not include her in the cast reunion, as I understand it to be. So as far as her as a person, I'm totally neutral. I don't affiliate with her politics and her ideas of what it is, what it means to be a woman. And that I think she's definitely more of a diehard feminist than I would identify as, because I don't identify as a feminist, even though I'm a woman and an artist myself. So it is just completely not against her, not for her. I'm very very much in the neutral zone regarding this person. Whatever she said in the past, whatever she wanted to make Dumbledore in the past, I don't care. It's it's her intellectual property. It's her right to say whatever she wants, even if it doesn't fit her own story. I think the artist should have accountability with going with the flow of the story and the narrative. At the end of the day, she has that artistic liberty to say whatever she wants, even if it's to the detriment of her art. Now, I would say her art is separate from her, and that if it didn't work, if the choices, if the political, ideological choices she made later, after the fact, of certain characters, well, it's too late. The public has received, these characters as they are. If you wanted to make a character a certain way, you should have done it, in the writing, the creative process of the book. But that's a sidebar. That's I think that those are earlier things she said, years ago, I think. So anyway, I really just want to talk about her as an artist, from artist to artist. With J.K. Rowling, it's a little bit different because she's widely successful. She's had the success of creating a cultural phenomenon that I would say is pretty much on the same level, on the same tier as Star Wars. People can argue if that's not the case, but it's a very, 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 very successful, profitable franchise. It doesn't have the length of Star Wars, the history. It's I believe a whole 20 years younger than Star Wars. A whole generation younger than Star Wars. It served a new generation of kids. So it doesn't have as long a history as Star Wars, and it doesn't have the massive world building like Star Wars, because she, unlike George Lucas, she I think has complete control over her IP. I don't think she's ever relinquished creative control. I think she has direct control over all her books and world building and the franchise. Whereas with George Lucas, he let people just create and publish things regarding the Star Wars universe. So it doesn't have the same scale in terms of world building. But as far as cultural success, I would say it is arguable to say that the Harry Potter series is pretty much on the same level as Star Wars. Totally debatable. I actually don't think it can be that quantifiable. But Anyway, but she's the one that started it all. So I wanted to talk about that. So without further ado, let's talk about the news surrounding J.K. Rowling. So if you aren't in the know, I don't know anything about streaming and all that. I just know about the story. But it appears that HBO Max is going to do, I think, an hour documentary or an hour-long special to commemorate and celebrate the 20th anniversary of the release of the first film, The Sorcerer's Stone. So this special includes a cast reunion, but J.K. Rowling will not be involved with that reunion, I should say. I do believe she will be interviewed if she's not been already. I do believe her interview will be shown in this special, but she will not be with the cast. She will not be in this reunion of cast and crew. Now, the first thing someone can argue is, well, okay, that shouldn't be too controversial because it involves the cast and crew. It involves the filmmakers. It involves the producers and the artists that created the film world, the film adaptation of her books. One can argue with that, and that's kind of a legitimate point. Where I would say maybe not so. Maybe it's controversial in the way of her involvement in the past with the cast and crew. If you Google J.K. Rowling, and if you go on the images tab, you'll find many pictures. You'll find a plethora of pictures of her being with the cast, directly with the three main characters, the main cast of it all. So it's not far-fetched to say, well, yeah, of course she would be with the old cast and the old crew members and the director or the composer. It would be very fitting. It would be a very natural thing for her to join this reunion. We got to remember she started it all. And so her absence is way less plausible than her being there with the cast and crew. Or maybe it's exclusively cast members. I'm not sure. Maybe you guys have more information on that. But it's still weird that the lady who has been involved with them in past award ceremonies and all of that, you see pictures, floating around on the internet. So it's happened where she's been, directly involved with these people, directly involved with these actors and actresses. It's believable that she would also be in this reunion. I mean, not only believable, but it would make sense, because what better way to honor the person who started all with having a beautiful 20-year reunion. It's kind of like a high school reunion, after 10 years of, after you graduate and then you see everyone else. Well, yeah, it should be treated as like a high school reunion, except with the film industry, with the franchise of Harry Potter, the Harry Potter films, and honoring the person who started it all. She's the artist that started it all. So her absence in this reunion is impractical at the very least, but that's what's causing the controversy. Why isn't the woman, the writer who set in motion this very, very successful franchise, why isn't she involved? This is a very weird and dare I say disturbing thing, if you think about it. This franchise, no matter how much work is involved with the producers, the writers, the filmmakers, the merchandise marketing, no matter how much work is put into making this a very, very successful franchise and very, very popular films, that the franchise itself would not have existed without her starting with those books. Now, I would say, with J.K. Rowling, one can argue it's a stroke of luck that her books were so successful. I would say it would be, this might be a sidebar. It is a little impractical for a writer to think, oh, I'm gonna be the next J.K. Rowling. I would say yes, she has her hand in her success, no doubt, but it is a stroke of luck. It's kind of like the Beatles. There are very talented musicians out there who are just as talented as the Beatles. One could argue, of course, me being as a musician, and they never got famous. So I would say she did have a stroke of luck with the Harry Potter series, but it was a phenomenon. It was something that had never been seen, kind of like with Lord of the Rings. It was something that had never been seen before. So to her credit, because of her creativity and her imagination, she started it. She started the success of this widely successful franchise. Now, again, I do want to say I'm neutral on her as a writer because I've never read her books. I don't know her style of writing. I don't know if her writing is even comparably good. Maybe I'd have issues with her writing. I don't know. Maybe I wouldn't care for her writing. This is not about how talented she is as a writer or how good she is or what lacks in her writing. This is just her imagination as an independent artist who started out probably poor, comparably poor, and just got her stories picked up. It's I know she's British, but it's quite an American story. It's like the American story of someone being picked up and becoming famous for their work, for their craft. So I do want to pay respect to her in that way. So this franchise that is a multi-billion-dollar franchise, without a question. This franchise not accepting her into an event like this. I actually don't know if it was her choice or not. I don't think it was her choice. I can't imagine it was her choice, but I could be wrong. But in any way, not having her in this reunion, the woman who started it all, this is a really, really weird thing happening in our culture. It's like denouncing J.R.R. Tolkien. Like the Middle Earth franchise. It's not the franchise in the way of Star Wars or Harry Potter, but it's sold probably the most amount of books. And then people, making the Tolkien estate or whoever profits off of copies and royalty from films or whatever the case is, whoever has control of that property, profiting off of that and saying, well, let's renounce Tolkien. So you've made money off of his ideas. You've made money off of his writing. Why would you throw J.K. Rowling under the bus, no matter how controversial her tweets are, unless she committed a heinous crime, unless she hurt someone, unless she murdered or something? You don't throw the person under the bus because she may have offended. She may have offended, someone, but she hasn't hurt someone, and there's a difference. It's kind of like someone who would attack me or attack my home. Someone who would attack my personhood for me being Christian. That's one thing, but someone who would say an anti-Christian thing like on a tweet, come on. I maybe I don't like it, but it's not controversial to me. It's not controversial to me. So those are my thoughts. It's a very weird thing where multi-billion, maybe million. I don't know if they make a lot of money now, now that the movies are over. But I can imagine it's got a pretty good asset as far as money making. To throw her under the bus just for controversial tweets, and I think it would have to do with those tweets. Again, it's speculation, but I had heard that the actors, the main three actors, Daniel Radcliffe, Emma Watson, and Rupert Grint, I can't remember his last name. They went against her tweets. They had to make it public that they were not for her tweets and that they were against her. It's like, be a little more gracious, because Harry Potter, no matter if they believe it or not, Harry Potter was the thing to start their careers. I don't know if the Rupert gentleman continued acting, but Daniel Radcliffe continued acting. Emma Watson's crazy famous. She's big. She's a celebrity. She's still a celebrity, and they would not have been as famous, as well known, as successful without the Harry Potter franchise, without J.K. Rowling, who started it all. And if you don't like her tweets, just ignore it, or just graciously say, I don't agree with her, but she is the woman whose works actually had my career take off. So it's a very strange thing. So that's what I wanted to talk about, is that's the world we live in. That's the world we live in. So think about it for you artists. Let's say your art was picked up. Let's say your stories were picked up, and it became massively successful. Let's say your stories became massively successful to the point where it did become a very profitable, very marketable franchise outside the movies, maybe with toys and action figures or T-shirts or whatever the case is, Christmas ornaments, anything. And then 20 years down the road, you say something they don't agree with, maybe as innocuous as, I don't care for our current president. And that would silence you, at least from the franchise's perspective, saying, we don't want you. We don't want you for the 25th anniversary of your first comic release. We prefer, you're a little controversial. So I think you should just stay home and we'll take care of it. That's the world we live in. This is the example. It's crazy. It's absolutely crazy. So I'd like to hear your thoughts on it. If you guys have any more information on the news, I'm just saying this with some loose speculation, but I will conclude with this before I get into the chat. This is an attack on legacy. This is hopefully an unsuccessful attempt to remove her from her own art. As I said previously, she has such a huge readership. I don't think she will be permanently canceled. I think it's just this event. I can't imagine her being completely, defamed and shunned and ostracized. Maybe from the elites, as we see with Hollywood. And if that's important to her, I'm sorry, J.K. Rowling. I'm sorry that had to happen to you. But as far as the ordinary person just loving her books, no, I think she'll have her readership. It's just a very strange thing that the woman that started the success of so many people and had people make so much money, where they would feel just, they could easily feel indignant and just say, go away. We don't need you. It's like, well, try saying that 20 years ago. Try saying that 20 years ago. So anyway, I probably have more to say to that, but let's go ahead and talk about what you guys are saying about all of this. All right. Dr. Wyatt wants to correct me, I think. No, no, just keep the doctor. Okay, cool. I've been using the name Doctor. Dr. Y. Oh, interesting. On your Discord. Great. Try not to, I don't care, but I'll say this now. I've been asked a couple times if I ever want to join Discord. I have no reason to. So I'm glad you guys are enjoying it though. So that's cool. That's cool. Excuse me. Ace Mowick says it's pronounced Mowick, like John Wick had a son and named him Mo. I'm a melting pot of Europe, but I'm not sure on the origin of the name. Interesting. If I had to guess, maybe probably not Swedish. I don't know. We'll see. Vessel of Mala says, "Love the first two films because it had somewhat of a childlike innocence mixed with its fantasies. The films were still good as time persists, but never recaptured that never-ending story vibe again." Yeah, it did get. I do remember the. Well, I think the first two films were also composed by John Williams, and then was it Danny Elfman who took up the mantle? You're right. The first two films did have that nice kind of childlike wonder and innocence, but I can see it getting more mature and darker in tone as they grew older. Although, even as like 13-year-olds, they face some pretty harrowing things. So I do understand that distinction, that distinct feel between the feel between the first two films and then the rest of them. Yeah. Yeah, well put. It's crazy. She gave most of them the freedom to retire in their teens, yet is given no thanks. Yeah. This very strange indignation, like I can renounce you. It's kind of I can't even think of it in any other way besides like let's say you had an elderly patron of some kind and they gave you a very good uh whether inheritance or maybe they bestowed their inheritance before they passed, and then during their life, you renounce them even after they've given you an incredible gift. It's just very, very odd. I don't think people think things through. I don't think people understand how entitled they're behaving. If you disagree with her and think her stuff is controversial, that's one thing, but be gracious about it. Just it's like they're trying to save face. It does strike me as cowardice. Like, oh, I got to make sure I'm not going to be blacklisted, So I have to make sure I'm definitely not just neutral about it. Like I'm definitely against her. It's like, oh, that's crazy. It's crazy to think about. Dr. Y says a certain party in Germany tried to get Tolkien on their side because he was of South African German descent. He said all the wrong things to them too. Wouldn't doubt it. I mean, he fought in World War One, so I am sure he had some sentiments against the party that really set things in motion for the second one. Yeah, you raise a really good point, Frank, and I'm in agreement with you. I think this is a different scenario, but I'll bring it up. There's been a lot of John Lennon hate due to his violent past. People have to separate the artist from the art. At least I can. Yeah, that's kind of that's a little bit a different case. In the way where J.K. Rowling didn't, she hasn't committed any terrible crime. Yeah, this would be seen as really controversial, but I'm pretty much right there with you. No matter the allegations or even the proof of the crime or the past or prejudice sentiments or whatever the case is, uh, at least for me, and it totally depends on your conscience. I would say in those kinds of cases, you really do have to separate the art from the artist. I must have mentioned this before, but there were some very prejudiced sentiments of Richard Wagner, the opera composer, German operatic composer. Uh, he had strong sentiments against Jewish culture and Jewish people, and would that take away from his art, his opera? I'm not a huge fan of his operas anyway, but I would say that they are pretty important. They're pretty seminal in in just the trajectory of music history. So with that, I can listen to a Wagner opera with a complete clear conscience. even if he had strong feelings against Jewish people, like hostile feelings against Jewish people. I don't link that to his art. He also had a reportedly a very, very terrible ego and a terrible pride was probably one of his strongest vices. But that doesn't stop me from listening to his opera. So, maybe like if I don't know much about John Lennon's music, but let's say inside the art, he's reciting some violent ideas. I want to listen to that because of the content. But if it's like a love song, I'm, and I think it's good and I appreciate it. Yeah, that's where I can draw that distinct line from the art and the artist. It's not praising the artist. It's not endorsing the artist. It's not lifting the artist up. And people might argue with me on that. They might contend with me on that. I was like, what are you talking about? You're listening to his song. Therefore, you're supporting him. Him as a person? No. I'm supporting his art. I would say, yeah. I had a thought and then it kind of went away. But it was to cushion that argument even further. It might come back. I don't know. So Dr. Y says, I'll admit that I avoided Rowling's books due to their levels of witchcraft, but she doesn't even deserve getting canceled by those people. Yeah, actually, Dr. Y, that's one reason why I didn't pick up the books either. Is like I'm not that comfortable with the topic of witchcraft, but at the same time, like I'm one of those Christians that I have a healthy understanding of what is analogous to good and evil. So she did use witchcraft and good warlocks versus evil warlocks and wizards and stuff like that. So it was analogous to good versus evil, and I'm fine with that. If I was a parent with kids and there wouldn't, like, for me there wouldn't be casting spells, like that kind of activity. I wouldn't have my family do. It's and I'm actually talking about like like an activity almost like a seance, where you could, like, I'm not superstitious. I do believe in principalities and supernatural powers just as a Christian. That's just my beliefs. So you don't want to entertain the spirits, let's say. And I think I had heard that there were some activities that encouraged that line of thinking and speaking incantations and stuff like that. I think that's an extreme example, but I do understand that part of the franchise did encourage those activities. As far as the books themselves or the movies, I even as a Christian, I don't have problem with the good kind of sorcery. For instance, one of my favorite characters in Masters of the Universe is the sorceress, and at first I'm like, oh, sorceress, that's evil, that's witchcraft and stuff like that. But she's a completely good person, so good in fact that she has the ability to protect the secret powers of Grayskull. Zootopia says she has doubled down on her comments in the past and has continued to be canceled. They have been going after her new movies and attacking her that way. And that, I find that to be so petty of people. Going after the art and trying to destroy the art and trying to bring down the reputation of the art, not even the artist, going after their art as a way of punishing her. And the crazy thing is, speaking lightly on the side of politics, this is very frightening because she actually is. I think she does identify herself as more left-leaning, and it's really people from that side that are taking her to task. And I'm saying that graciously. I think they're probably trying to do worse things to her. But I think she was even on that side, and you know, they kind of eat their own when it comes to these things. Now I'm glad she's sticking to her beliefs. I think she even wrote a blog on what was it? She's been attacked for being transphobic, for instance. But then I think she wrote a blog saying no, she supports the trans community. She just had very scientific reasons for believing what she believes in, and they still didn't like it. So I would say, you know, that's the world we live in. Actually, there are more comments. Well, let's finish Zetopia's comment. She is still a billionaire, so she's going to be fine. Oh yeah, I mean, yeah, I'm not concerned for her welfare by any stretch of the imagination. But people who are not as fortunate, not as successful, if they get plagued with this kind of behavior, you know, people attacking them and their art, they won't have that luxury. They won't have that leisure to say, oh, I guess I'm not working. No, they have to find, you know, other work outside their art, you know, because most artists make kind of a, you know, I would say so sometimes it's not lucrative being an artist. Let's just say that. Now, I actually did want to talk about another thing before going back to the chat regarding this. And I think this story hits home for me pretty close, you know, as an artist. But I'll even be a little bit more personal, why this story hits so close to home. About 5 years ago, you know, 5 years ago from now, I I had a different mindset as an artist. I really had a different line of thinking as an artist. I wanted my space opera and my science fiction to be very famous, and I wanted Hollywood or people like Hollywood to pick up my stories and have them be famous and well known, so these stories can inspire and impact people. This was about 5 years ago. This was before I knew about Professor Geek. This is before I knew about what the elites of the academics and Hollywood and media, what these guys are willing to do to tear down inspirational stories. I had no clue this was happening. I didn't know anything about Superman. I didn't know anything about you know, Superman's treatment in the Man of Steel. I didn't know anything about um, you know, I didn't know the weight, the cultural weight of what happened to Luke Skywalker in The Last Jedi. I had no clue. You know, as far as I was, by all accounts, a normie, thinking, oh, I'm a science fiction writer, and I want my stuff to be well known, and I want a credible producer to pick it up, and for a film studio to make a film of it, and have it be known, and have it inspire millions of people. I'm not against lofty goals. I'm not against big, massive goals like that. But that was my mindset. And then the more I listened to Professor Geek, the more I listened to different people around the YouTube public square, the more I realized, oh, it was like, wow, I don't want my stories to be picked up by these major players in the industry because of this. Because even with complete complete direct control of the IPs of your IP, you're still you're still put between a rock and a hard place. People bully you. You know, people who have no respect for your opinions, no respect for your different line of thinking. You know, if you have a different opinion from the collective, they'll try to punish you or try to manipulate you. And so I can't even imagine if I had written my books and let's say by a stroke of luck, a credible studio picked it up, and then feeling and facing that public pressure. Oh, not just public pressure, but pressure from the elites of the industry saying, well, we don't want you to write in such a way, or we don't want your characters to be in such a way. We actually want to change up your characters and change up the plot, and just to fit our narrative, to fit our ideology. I'm glad I'm glad I saw that before. I kept thinking, along those lines, like, oh, let's get this picked up. Let's try to make these stories very famous. I'm glad I've come to the point where it's like I still love my stories, and I still want my stories to be out there, but I've over the years, over the last 4 to 5 years, I have been very, very content with the idea of just serving a very small demographic, a very small community. It's actually RJ. He had a recent video, very inspiring video. It's a little bit on the long side, but it's a very inspiring video of his seeing the silver lining in all this ideological entertainment, and that the creatives are going to be the smaller guys, the little man, it's going to be the smaller creators, and it's going to be creators that may only have an audience of 100 people or 1,000 people, may only have a very small readership, but a devoted readership. That's the most important. Is like I would rather have 1,000 people listen to my music and love my music and support me in my music than 100,000 or 1,000,000 people who are so about it, or definitely definitely with writing, which there's a little bit more objectivity with writing, because now you're dealing with characters and concrete thoughts. Music, you can kind of get away with being a little bit more nebulous, especially instrumental music, not so much songwriting, but with something like writing, creative writing, I would rather have 1,000 readers be devoted to that story and be inspired by that story than 100,000 or 1,000,000 readers who aren't really fans. Like, they know it, they consume it, but they aren't really fans. Not that I wouldn't complain, for having a very good readership, but I would prefer the quality in my audience, especially now in light of what we're seeing. When we're seeing people who were very admired for many, many, many years, like J.K. Rowling, from the elites, from Hollywood and all that. Now she's been thrown under the bus. That's so crazy to think about. It's so crazy to think about. And so I'm thinking, well, I would say the best scenario for artists now is to be popular only within the demographic it serves. So, like with RJ, the fourth age, for instance, I think he will have a readership. I'm guessing he will have a readership about 20,000, 20 to 30,000, which is substantial if he keeps producing comics and stories. And I find that to be so encouraging. He even announced on this video, because I hadn't heard it before, so it's probably some kind of announcement where he's within the next 10 years, his goal, his stretch is to create his own comic book company where he sells comics and graphic novels. That's really cool. And it might have a very small demographic. It might have a very small audience compared to mainstream stuff that Disney has, or that other places that Hollywood has. But it's the quality of the audience. And I think that I find that to be very encouraging now. About 5 years ago, I would think, oh no, I don't want a smaller audience. I want to inspire the world with my art, with my craft. I'm not saying that's an impossibility. By some stroke of luck, anyone's writing can be snatched up and say, "Whoa, this is amazing," So I'm not saying it's an impossibility to have such a large audience, but that's definitely not my focus as it used to be. And it's because of the culture we're seeing, where the culture is so bent on tearing down people over the most insanely innocuous things that don't hurt people, things that don't physically assault society. It's a tweet. Someone were to come up to me with a tweet and say something very anti-Christian, I'm like, I'll pray for you, but I'm not going to have that bother me. And I'm certainly not going to try to destroy their livelihood and their family, just because they offended me. Well, what's the bigger offense? Trying to destroy their lives. That's the bigger offense. And I don't have that vindication. So that's what I also wanted to point out with this news is this kind of thing we're seeing just the culture. We're seeing just the spirit behind the industries. And it's just not something that is ideal anymore for the creative. It's just not the place to be as creative. No matter how much money you make, it's just not the place. I'm not against making a lot of money. I'm not. But I would never want to have the hassle of being constantly bullied or manipulated to change the integrity of my story or my music or my opinions on this platform. Like if I were to have a substantial audience of 100,000, for instance, and people say, "Oh, she's saying some problematic things on her YouTube channel," it's like it's my YouTube channel. It's my house, man. It's my living room. If you don't like it, you don't have to stay. That's the beauty of it. So you can find other things. Don't try to tear down my channel just because of an opinion you don't like. So hopefully that's encouraging to you artists out there, where just be content with inspiring a smaller demographic. Could be your story could be picked up and have a huge audience, but at the end of the day, at least in the culture we're seeing now, would you really, and this is an honest question for all of us, would you really want Netflix to pick it up? Would you really want a streaming service to pick it up? Would you want Disney to pick it up? Flat out answer for me is no. Definitely no. Especially not for Disney. Sorry, Disney. And I'm not talking about Walt Disney. Just talking about the entity that is Disney now. Private Eye, welcome. Nice to see you. Let's see what you say. JK went a little crazy after the movies ended. I think she was bored, and the hide and seek ideas on her next book, which sold poorly because she used a pseudonym. Oh, I didn't know that. But I thought she was known to write a contemporary novel that just wasn't picked up. The thing is, it's like that's another thing to know as an artist is, let's say you do create a cultural phenomena and then you want to write something completely different. Both you and your audience must have the expectation that it's going to be different, that for you as an artist, it won't be as well received because it's just not the icon, that the iconic seminal phenomena as it is the case with the Harry Potter series. And then the audience, let your fans know, let the audience know, hey, this is different. I'm trying something new. It's something I want to do. If it's not as popular, I understand. Now, here's the thing with J.K. Rowling, and this is true for anyone. I do believe, as creative as she is with her world of Harry Potter, she did land this phenomena, this widely successful phenomena, by a stroke of luck. Because there are a lot of people who are just as creative, if not more, with their worlds, and their stories won't be picked up on the same level. So that's one thing. You gotta just factor in, if you do get widely successful, it is a stroke of luck, as well as your work and your craftsmanship, but it is a stroke of luck. Where was I going with that? Oh yeah. So what Private Eye was saying. Now here's the thing for her to know, and for any artist to know, if they're widely successful, you will not be as received by any other thing you create compared to your cultural phenomena. That's just the natural thing. I mean, I guess, well, if she did something subsequent to Harry Potter that was fantastical and as creative like Harry Potter, maybe people would say, "Oh, I'm on board. Let's try this." Maybe they would like it, maybe they wouldn't. But it'd have to be something fantastical. It would have to be in the same genre as fantasy. But I think she did something real world, non-magical, contemporary writing. I think she took a stab at contemporary writing, which actually is a genre I have absolutely no interest in. I would pick up fantasy much faster than contemporary writing. It's just a different genre. It's a different style altogether. Well, you're not gonna get the same reception. That's just fact. That's that's just math, okay? You can't do something so dichotomously different from Harry Potter and expect the same level of success. That's just not practical to think that way. So, yeah, so maybe she wanted to stir the pot and get relevant again. Most people do, if you have that level of fame, I'm sure you had this kind of addiction to stay relevant. Final Fantasy 12 says, being offended over the internet. I don't care. The internet is a horrible place to be at the end of the day, not even for children. I think the internet is wonderful for edification, like education or receiving insight. But yeah, if you kind of just consume mindlessly, yeah, it's not a good thing. Team Ghost Planet Ghost says we both agree. Well, thank you. I do appreciate that. Dismissing your legacy and learning nothing from your past? Really? Well, yeah, and actually, that's an inside joke. um, yeah. So dismissing your legacy. The prof was talking about that with Ghostbusters. This is kind of meta that we're talking about because he's talking about the success, the paying beautifully paying um homage to the past. Now, I don't know anything about Ghostbusters. I just never got into the franchise. But my prof is a big fan, and he loved Ghostbusters Afterlife, and but I can still resonate with why it was so important, why it was a very thematically good film, and the theme was respecting what has come before, respecting the past, honoring the past, and moving forward or having a good, appropriate conclusion. Now, I don't know anything about Ghostbusters, so I can't speculate apart from what I've heard what the prof is saying because he knows Ghostbusters in and out. But this instance with Ghostbusters Afterlife is a rarity now. Apart from the movie that shall not be named, Ghostbusters 2016. I don't know anything about Ghostbusters, but I do know the cultural stir that movie produced. It's effectively trying to either belittle what's come before or be unoriginal and just kind of take what's come before without paying homage to what's come before. And actually, he would know the story much better than I regarding what 2016 did to the first two films of Ghostbusters. And so it actually happened in the Ghostbusters franchise, but I think most people don't see 2016 as anything. In fact, I was talking with a woman who's a fan of Ghostbusters yesterday, a couple days ago, and she never saw 2016. She didn't need to, and I think that was a lot of people. Even the people who liked Ghostbusters, the first two films, they knew, they saw the signs, and they're like, I don't need to watch that. So hopefully that was a common response. So yes, it did happen in the history of the filmmaking with Ghostbusters, but it's happened everywhere. It's happened with He-Man. It's happened with Superman. It's happened with Star Wars. We're gonna get to Star Wars because I can't go without talking about Star Wars and legacy here. If I do have time, and I'm gonna make time. Make time for Star Wars because I've got something to get off my chest as far as Star Wars is concerned. But every franchise we've seen, every beloved franchise we've seen is it's been, not only are we going to ignore the past and say the past is unimportant or irrelevant, we're gonna, before we claim irrelevance here, we've got to deconstruct and destroy what's come before. That's the only way the beloved past can be rendered irrelevant, is when you deconstruct it first, when you rewrite the history. So it's kind of a meta thing we're seeing with with Prof's viewing of Ghostbusters Afterlife, and a real life example with trying to remove the legacy of J.K. Rowling. This is huge. This artistic legacy that the very franchise she started is trying to remove her. That's insane. So it's not even resting inside the narrative of these deconstructed films themselves. It's happening in real life. It's a mirror image happening in real life. That's crazy. It's just a crazy, crazy thing to think about. And I do want to talk about the removal of artistic legacy. So we're seeing this a real life to be a real life example with J.K. Rowling. Again, I don't think she'll have it too bad because she'll always have her readership no matter what. So she has that. She has that. And she has direct control over her IP. So she's got actually a lot going for her. So we have the real life scenario with J.K. Rowling in the way of the elites trying to remove her legacy, but then we also have the uh, fictional example in the way of Star Wars. So I'm going to read some comments, and actually I might take just a quick break, and I'll play my music too for my break. But we'll get through the comments, and then we'll talk about what's been kind of irking me regarding Star Wars, and not irking me. I actually that's not a good word. Actually, it's something I'm learning to let go of, and I'm not going to say that because I really feel like I'm at that point where it's you know it's a new era. Let's just say that it's a new era that I'm not going to be a part of. I'm really prefacing this poorly, but whatever. Gigawatt says, seems like the same thing with H.P. Lovecraft. Hollywood hates the author and drags him through the mud, but tries to make truckloads of money with his work. Yeah. Same thing with Disney. Talking about Walt Disney being problematic. This is so weird. This is why I'm advocating a small, intrinsically valuable demographic to serve as an artist, because a very strange thing to want to remove people's legacy. And at the same time, there's this entrepreneurial spirit going on where it's like, I've got to change the world and I've got to inspire people. It's like, well, for instance, like I don't want to pick on her too much, but like if Emma Watson, for instance, is really throwing J.K. Rowling under the bus and trying to be that active agent in removing her legacy. Well, what's going to happen when Emma Watson is in her 60s, or even after her death? Like, let's say she lives a full life, and people 80 years from now find that some of her statements were problematic, and bye-bye. There goes Emma Watson. This is a very bad precedent. This is a very dangerous precedent that the culture is setting. It's like on a whim. Now, here's the crazy thing is, and this is important. This is important. People are actively, especially in the academics, these guys are not intellectual. They're not honest, that's for sure. But people in the academics are trying to find ways to circumvent the importance and the legacy of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., where they are finding, they're theoretically, it's all theory, it's not anything based on fact, where they're trying to find problems with him, or they're trying to find him to be, well, he's not what we represent, so therefore let's try to remove his legacy. It's like, at the very least, can you please pay respect to the man who was assassinated? Come on. Can you please have the decency and the decorum to at least respect that he was wrongfully assassinated? Just have that much, please. Please don't take that away from him. So even figures like Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., who we have a holiday for him. And it's gonna be 10 years down the road where it's like, we really shouldn't have a holiday celebrating this man because he's really problematic. That's the level of craziness this has been. Frey Lanks is here. Lanks. Harry Potter is beloved by millennials. It is very cool to observe the internal struggle. It is absurdity. Yeah, it's crazy. There's a lot of things meta, I would say. Let's see. We'll get through the comments. Dr. Y says, I had picked up a book called Fantasy and Your Family. The author contrasted the magic of Tolkien and Lewis to the magic of Harry Potter. I like how you I like how you add the K to magic for Harry Potter. Here I would say, we might differ. You're a Christian, I'm a Christian too. So we might differ in our beliefs there. I don't think it's magic with a K, like a cult. Now, I do believe cults have risen from the imagination and the imaginative world of Harry Potter, but I would not, if I truly believed it was the dangerous cult like magic with a K of Harry Potter, like Harry Potter was about that. No way, I wouldn't watch Harry Potter. If I was paid $1 million, but I don't think it's that kind of magic. The magic is analogous to good and evil. It's of course very different from Tolkien and Lewis. And, J.K. Rowling is not a Christian, I don't think. So, of course, it would be different that way. But it's kind of like Bewitched. I mean, I know Christians would have a huge problem with even the show like Bewitched. It's like, it's a sitcom. It's a sitcom. But, if we differ philosophically, that's fine. I have a lot of Christian friends who will not touch Harry Potter. I know Christian friends who won't touch Star Wars because of the mysticism. And it's like, if you see it as analogous, but that's okay. That's okay. That's just my philosophy. But yeah. Yeah, the inside joke, I'll just go ahead and say the inside joke here. I'm not a fan of the word hex, but the prof's daughter, Alyssa, has I guess I don't know what the show is called, but it's about like the witch being mischievous and she casts spells on people by saying hex. And I've been cleaning a little bit of the walls on the house, and there was in red the letter hex on the house, and I'm like, I'm gonna take that off. Now with Prof and Alyssa, of course, it's completely innocent. But I always felt like that word was taboo a little bit. But I know Prof is innocent in that way. So I'm not like, oh, I gotta get rid of that word or something like that. Let's see. Frey says, one of my favorite artists is Rebecca Gouet. Beautiful art. Her politics I find like ludicrous, but I can appreciate her art for what it is, and affirming her because you're supporting her art. You're not supporting her as a person. I mean, you are supporting her in the way of promoting her art or livelihood, recommending her on the channel and stuff like that. So there's that. But yeah, there is a line between the artist and the art. Now, I really want to continue producing iconic, seminal electronic music. Like, I want to produce inspiring, thought-provoking electronic music. Now, it's all going to be instrumental, and it's all going to be what you fancy. Like, oh, this makes me think of this. This makes me think of this world. This makes me think of this kind of story or something like that. It's all, depends on the interpretation of the listener. But, I will have, I do plan on having electronic music that is programmatic in like a biblical way, like an idea, a depiction, like an olive tree or something that has biblical symbolism. And even people who would otherwise be antithetical to my Christian faith, they could still hear that music and not understand or see or appreciate the Christian symbolism. Now, if they're like, okay, this is obviously about Calvary and Christ dying for sins of the world, I don't prefer that. I'm not a Christian. like if Sound Engraver wants to do that, then that's cool. But maybe they could appreciate the instrumental electronic music without even thinking about that symbolism or that program. Or maybe they say, okay, I don't really support Sound Engraver and her Christian faith, but I like her other music here, you know? I'm sure a lot of atheists have read Tolkien and C.S. Lewis and their works, their fantasy and sci-fi works. Well, Tolkien didn't do sci-fi, but Lewis did. That's funny. My parents despise the word normie. I thought normie was spelled with an IE. I'm actually not a fan of it myself. But we're all geeks here in our own way. Super Kaishiyuka is here. I heard that the author of The Inheritance is trying to get Disney to adapt his books. I feel sorry for him. Don't know that series or the author, but we'll see. Maybe he wants. Maybe he wants that. Yeah, we'll see. Final Fantasy says, "Wow, Professor Geek has really shown us the way for artists like you, Sound Engraver, to aspiring writers like me." Yes, that's why I love doing this. That's why I love streaming. Thank you. I appreciate you saying that. Okay, Wolf10. I hate to leave early, but I will say, wish me luck on job interview tomorrow. Good. Wolf10, you'll have to tell us about that. That's cool. Tuesday. Okay, cool. Good. Bye, Wolf10. I know, actually, you're probably gone right now, but maybe you'll catch up the replay. I don't know. Okay, Ace. See you later, too. Well, if you late goers or not late goers, late timers, what am I trying to say? If you guys want to hang out, like I'm probably gonna get something off my chest regarding Star Wars if I still have the. Well, I teased it, so I have to do it. All right. John Hansen says, "I am indeed encouraged as an artist." Good, good. Super Kashiyuka says, "I'm a Satanist, so I know my writing will be accepted in Hollywood." I mean, I don't know. I mean, I don't really know too much about that way of religion, although that would be antithetical to my faith. I guess I would say like that the principles of destroying and mocking would be resonant, but I don't know if that's the way of your religion. But I would say, just because I am a Christian, don't entertain those thoughts on this chat. And if you had a channel, I want to entertain your channel with my Christian thoughts. But anyway, off topic. Is SuperCollider always broken? That is off topic. It works for me. In fact, actually, I'm going to drop a SuperCollider video tomorrow. It's just more basic sound synthesis, but I did pick up a neat trick on a control variable. If you want to use the pulse wave for to be a control variable, I know how to smoothen out the clippy sounds, so I'm going to show that. Yeah, SuperCollider works fine for me, but I'm not a computer scientist, so I don't know if I wouldn't be able to tell you if it's broken unless the audio server didn't turn on. Big Al presents Ghostbusters Afterlife was so wonderful. GB16 is a septic tank spill of awfulness. Septic tank spill of awfulness. Yeah, good. There's something called music. Anything the woke SNL crew sure. Well, I won't read that. I should read before posting. Oh, I don't swear, by the way. But thank you for sort of censoring yourself with the exclam. That's right, Go Team Ghost Planet. We both believe in legacy and on creators' rights. And Walt Disney was a conservative and Christian, and his company despises him for that. Daniel Craig, nice to see you. The notion of constantly erasing as a tool, yeah, control for commies. If you get to this point of scrubbing everything all the time, up to the last second, you have total control. That's the thing. That's the thing. Why I like this idea of this renaissance of smaller creators with smaller demographics is that they won't have control. Like if you have a huge selection of small creators, you're gonna fill different pockets. Now we do have monopolies now. I mean, even the mainstream media, I would dare say at least it's a monopoly on the mind. If it's not an actual technical monopoly, it's a monopoly on the mind. And I think people just this is going to segue to my topic on Star Wars. I think people just need when people despair, I think people just need to um just uh stop listening. Stop listening to these people. I mean, stop even giving it the bad press and the bad attention as well. Man, it's almost 11. It's not, and I haven't reached the 90-minute mark. A lot of comments today. Yes, yes. We talked about that last week, Go Team Ghost Planet. I hate it when historical monuments are being removed and destroyed. It angers me because the statues are a work of art. Yeah, even if you are against what that statue represents, even if it's completely antithetical to your entire being, it's a work of art. If it's well done, it's a work of art. And that needs to be respected. That needs to be respected. Just if there's a statue in the park that you don't like, don't walk in that park. Find another park. If there was a statue that was an abomination to the Christ figure, I would take no part in viewing it. That you know, it's you don't want to destroy that work of art because that sets the precedent for destroying everything else. So I'm against the abomination if something was blasphemous against my faith, but I would prefer the artist's freedom to promote that than to tear that down and then have everything be torn down because then all the Christian iconography is torn down. And where's the edification in that? So yeah. Oh, oh, Frank. As far as mysticism in the real life sense, that's opening a can of worms to probably another topic. I mean fictitious or fictional mysticism, like in the world building of Star Wars, for instance. Doo-doo-doo. So, Super Kaishi Yuka, just be mindful. Don't egg my stream or my chat because I do put people on timeout. If I get a sense that someone's trying to start a ruckus. So always be respectful. Listen, I do see new people. If you guys aren't familiar with my streams, I do have people be respectful, even if we talk about politics, regarding art or what's happening in the art world. I try. A lot of people, a lot of old timers here are really respectful in their comments, and I do want people not to egg or harass or anything else, even if we disagree. Egg on, I meant to say as a phrase. All right. Oh man, you guys, so many comments. This is great. Okay. Let me take a quick break because if you guys are open, even if you guys like all tune out, or log off, I'm probably just gonna do this to get off my chest. And if it isn't successful, I'll probably do a separate video on it, or maybe even just do another stream. But I do want to talk about Star Wars and what's happening there. But let me go on to my website, post some music. What music should I do today? Probably the best. Yeah, probably. Let's first share the screen, and hopefully you can hear the audio. I'll ask you guys if you guys can hear the audio. I haven't posted anything yet. Oh, why did I black out? Can you guys still hear me? Okay. Weird. I couldn't see myself on screen for a little bit. So yeah, you can see me now. I think I'll do edgewise, and I'll do road less traveled, which is a good one. So if you guys, let me see if I can hear it myself. I actually can't hear it on my end. That's weird. Okay, can you guys hear my music? Because I actually can't hear my music on my end. I don't know quite why that's working. So if you guys can give me a shout out, and if you can't hear my music, then I'll take a very quick break and then come back. So anyone want to? And also, if I'm buffering, and I'll post it. Am I buffering? Chat looks good. Can't hear. Okay, so you can't hear the music. That's okay. I think I know what I think I know what happened. I reset the computer, so the configuration is a little bit different. Thanks for verifying. Yeah. Okay. Well, that's okay. But can you hear me? Because the screen went black for a few minutes or a few seconds. So just let me know if you can see me, if you can hear me. It looks good on my end. Okay, so music confirms. Okay, I'm good to go. Okay, so let me take like a quick couple minutes. Too bad you can't hear my music, but that's okay. I can't hear it either, so that's all right. I will be right back, and then we'll wrap it up. But oh man, this could be a heavy topic. I'm just gonna do it. So I'll be right back. All right. Now I'm gonna check again if you guys can hear me. One more time. I got a pop up on saying there was a browser disconnection. So if you guys could give me one final word that you can hear me, that you can see me, um, I'm gonna exit my YouTube because there's something really slow. I think my computer is processing things rather slowly. So yeah, if you guys want to just say the word that you okay, we can hear your dulcet tones. Good. That's good. All right. So I'm gonna try to make this quick, get off my chest, and if I feel like I have to elaborate a little bit more, I'll probably post it as a separate video. But I think this is really really important. So we were talking about the removal of artistic legacy in the way of this controversy with J.K. Rowling and her not being present in the cast reunion of this 20th anniversary, this film anniversary. But I actually do want to talk about another example about artistic legacy. I've presented it before, but I do think it's worth mentioning now. And that has to do with Star Wars. Now, J.K. Rowling is a real person. She exists in our world. What I want to talk about is actually the legacy of Luke Skywalker in Star Wars. I've come to find, especially in my feed of Star Wars channels, as of late, I've just seen thumbnails and titles where it, I've been seeing this push of theories of things happening with the upcoming shows, especially regarding this show, the Ahsoka series, on this character who I've talked about before. If you guys don't know, I'm sure most of you do. I have an entire playlist. I have hours of analysis, of writing analysis on just how problematic Ahsoka Tano is as a character. My history with Ahsoka Tano, I liked her, and I stand by this. I stand by this. She was perfect. Well, she was not perfect. As far as her role in the story, it was perfect up until season 5. She had a lot of writing flaws before then. Don't get me wrong. She's had a lot of very bad writing choices as the character. Just by and large, just very very poor writing choices. But her departure from Anakin Skywalker and the Jedi in season 5, fine. Just leave it at that. Well, we had Clone Wars season 7, and you guys know how I talked about that and how I feel about the writing choices there, especially with the Siege of Mandalore. In fact, that was really the only arc that I delved into. And the writing of Dave Filoni has proved to be just really really poor. Very very mediocre, but I would actually just say downright objectively terrible. How Ahsoka Tano has been treated, how people like Obi-Wan Kenobi or Darth Maul have been treated. Dave Filoni is not a writer. And unless he has spent the last 2 years under strict tutelage where he has written 8 hours a day, including editorial processing, I don't suspect his writing has improved at all for this Ahsoka Tano series, or maybe he's in the process of writing. It's only been a couple of years. It actually hasn't even been a couple of years since the release of the Siege of Mandalore, and I can't expect his writing to have improved at all. But it looks like, according to IMDb, with this series, he's pretty much the sole writer. The Siege of Mandalore, as I had observed before, that was the only time out of all 7 seasons where Dave Filoni had complete free reign on the writing, where he was the sole writer. And that proved to be the worst, most treacherous treatment of Ahsoka Tano. His writing, graciously, I would say, is subpar, but his writing really is very, very bad. He's not a good writer at all. And now he has complete control over this series with this character. Now, that's all building up to what I'm trying to say, just with the general legacy of Star Wars and of Luke Skywalker, the main hero of all of Star Wars. No matter how big Star Wars gets, Star Wars is about the hero's journey, and that hero is Luke Skywalker. Contend with me if you will that I'm a Luke Skywalker fangirl. No, I'm not. But we have to talk about this because this is really important for artists to know. So with everything coming out with Star Wars news, you know, the Book of Boba Fett, the Ahsoka series, we've got other things happening, or I don't have it. I shouldn't even use the word we in this. This is all Disney. This is all Disney Star Wars. So naturally, with all this news, you've got the commentators, Star Wars Theory, Thor Skywalker, people who say they're fans, people who say they are diehard fans of Star Wars. They are devoted to Star Wars. They love Star Wars. I am seeing more and more a very precarious pattern, and this is what it is. I am seeing, we're talking about legacy here, I am seeing this need to drum up theories on characters like Ahsoka Tano and where she fits in two places, in her meeting with Luke Skywalker after the Return of the Jedi. And even, I've seen this now, even trying to drum up theories on where she was in the original trilogy. Now, I'll just state the obvious. She didn't exist at all. She was never written at all in the original trilogy. Now, people are like, well, yeah, that's obvious. Why do you have to bring that up? Well, I want to say it's important to bring this up because people are really, really trying to rehash and reorganize and deconstruct and reconstruct and revisit and uproot and reconnect all stories and plots to support and bolster a theory on, like, how can we make Ahsoka Tano's absence plausible? How can we make the original trilogy make sense with Ahsoka Tano's absence? And to that I say at first, is that even necessary? Why try to drum up all these theories and say, well, this happened in this event, and therefore she's not here with the original trilogy. She was not in the original trilogy. She doesn't need to be in any way a part of the original trilogy, even in her absence. Even in her absence. She served her purpose in the Clone Wars. She served her purpose in Rebels. She does not, even in her absence, even at the mention of her name, does not need to be a part of the original trilogy. Now, why is that important? Well, it kind of leads to the next thing, what people are talking about. More than 3 channels I've seen already now where they're theorizing this idea. Well, maybe Ahsoka Tano teaches Luke Skywalker the ways of the Force after the death of Obi-Wan, after the death of Yoda, after the reconciling of his father, Anakin Skywalker. Well, maybe she's still a living Jedi. And so therefore, because she's older and more experienced, words of Dave Filoni, because she's older and more experienced and more knowledgeable of the Force, she can teach Luke Skywalker. Why is this a problem? Why is this a problem? creatively speaking, narratively speaking, why is this a problem in Star Wars? The first is a practical reason. Luke Skywalker has Ghost Force Yoda, Ghost Force Obi-Wan, and even Anakin. It's kind of now that we have the lore, it is kind of problematic that Anakin Skywalker is even a Force ghost. Whatever, he's powerful, he's the chosen one. That could be aside. I don't really have anything to say about that. I don't find anything wrong with that. But he's got, from the Return of the Jedi, he's got 3 mentors, spiritual mentors that can show him the way. Therefore, he doesn't need a living Jedi to teach him the way. That's the practical answer of that. So in that way, Ahsoka is not needed. She doesn't need to teach Luke Skywalker the ways of the Force in order to establish this new Jedi Order. Now, I want to talk about a more spiritual, moral reason why she shouldn't teach Luke Skywalker the ways of the Force so he can establish this new Jedi Order, which would be, if that's the case, it would be their Jedi Order. This would be Ahsoka's Jedi Order. The moral conundrum of this is that, narratively speaking, in the story, it was Luke Skywalker, in extending his mercy and love to his father, he redeemed his father and destroyed the evil of Emperor Palpatine in one sitting. By his sacrifice and his devotion and his love for his father, to redeem his father, to draw Anakin back to the light. In effect, George Lucas would probably call it karma, but in effect, that instigated that final action of Anakin Skywalker to destroy the Sith. It was Luke Skywalker who caused that. It was Luke Skywalker, it was Anakin who killed the Emperor Palpatine. But it was Luke Skywalker and his love for his father who started it all. Kind of like with J.K. Rowling. She's the one who started it all. It was the initial action that caused a good reaction in Anakin Skywalker to destroy the Sith. So effectively, Luke Skywalker, against the advice of Obi-Wan, a good man, a good person, against the advice of Obi-Wan, against the advice of Yoda, well, Yoda with his going to Cloud Bespin, the Cloud City of Bespin, to save his friends. That was his good nature. He's like, I have to help my friends, even at the cost of all of this. Because Yoda and Obi-Wan were still in that, we have to promote the universal good even at the expense of our friends. They were still kind of stuck in that old Jedi way. That could have been one of those pebbles to start that avalanche, that caused their fall. But Luke, by his own instinct and yeah, he's impulsive. That's a flaw that he has to overcome. But his love to help his friends and then ultimately help his father, that's him only. That is his nature only. This is the thing that distinguishes him. This distinguishes him from Leia, even a very good protagonist and a hero, a very good woman. But what does she say? She's like, well, if he can feel your presence, then leave here. I'll stay and fight the soldiers, or the stormtroopers. I'll fight with the rebellion, but you leave. And Luke says, no, I have to go to my father. I have to go to our father. I have to have that one chance at bringing him back, even if it means my death. So in that, he's not only redeemed someone back into the light, it also simultaneously destroyed the most evil that universe, as far as we know, has ever faced. Because of that, only Luke Skywalker has the right to establish the new Jedi Order. He doesn't really need teaching. In fact, in the Thrawn Trilogy, after 5 years of some spiritual mentorship from Obi-Wan, Obi-Wan says, "Listen, you're ready to start this new order, but you have to figure it out." Now, people might say, "Wait a second, Michelle. Are you saying it had to be like the Thrawn Trilogy? Are you saying it had to be what Timothy Zahn said, verbatim, plot, event for event and all that?" No, but what I will say about the Thrawn Trilogy, I didn't like everything about the Thrawn Trilogy. I'm not a super fan of the Thrawn Trilogy. I actually don't really care for the character Thrawn himself. I know it's an anomaly. I accept that. But what I do really, really, really love about the Thrawn Trilogy is it got Luke Skywalker right to the letter. It got the spirit of Luke Skywalker right to the letter. Yeah, he had his doubts. He's like, "I don't know how to figure this out." But what did he do? What eventually caused him to be able to set up the new Jedi Order? His interactions with Sabayoth and Mara Jade. Those 2 interactions with those 2 characters and multiple interactions with those 2 characters, that's what triggered him to find out, "Oh, I'm still figuring this out, but I can do this." And it's not until the end of the book 3 of the trilogy, where Mara Jade and Luke Skywalker together with her redemption defeat Sabayoth. Sorry, spoiler alert. Forgot to say that. But it was through those encounters where he found himself. He was very much misguided by the dark Jedi, as it was called back then in the EU world. I know that's a problematic term now. I'm not sure why, but he was misled by Sabayoth. Sabayoth had kind of a strange air about him, where he was definitely crazy and definitely power hungry. But there were misgivings. Yes, Luke had his misgivings about the man, but he still wanted to not work with Sabayoth. He wanted to appease him. He wanted to reach out to Sabayoth as coming back to the light, as he wanted his father to. Now, he doesn't succeed with Sabayoth. Sabayoth remains estranged and uber powerful in the Force, and wants to destroy things. He wants to destroy things he can't control, but he really actually just wants to control the minds of everyone through the Force. But he does redeem Mara Jade. He pulls her out of this nightmarish relationship that she had with Emperor Palpatine, where it was a very insidious kind of twisted father-daughter relationship that she couldn't get out of until the coming and rescuing of Luke Skywalker. And when he redeemed her at the end, that's when he was ready to set up the order. So this is why Ahsoka doesn't need to teach Luke. Now one could argue saying, "Well, Michelle, they're not going to do word for word an adaptation of the Thrawn trilogy. It's not going to go as the plot is." Actually, I'd like to say this. I don't need a Thrawn trilogy adaptation. Even if it was very good, wholesome climate in Hollywood, I still would not need an adaptation of the Thrawn trilogy. What I'm saying is that trilogy got Luke Skywalker and his trajectory to become the first Jedi Master of this new order. That's what's important. So even if they did a completely different story, even if I read a completely different story with different villains, with different encounters, with different adventures, with even a different dynamic between Han and Leia, for instance, if they kept that spirit of Luke Skywalker intact, I would have been fine. It wasn't the book itself, it wasn't the story itself that I admired. It was preserving the spirit of Luke Skywalker and the heart of Luke Skywalker, and keeping that trajectory all the way through. It was a very reasonable, pragmatic, believable trajectory from him not knowing what to do at the very beginning of the first book, when Obi-Wan says, I'm departing. We may meet again, but maybe not on this side of the Force. I am departing. It is up to you. You have it." He said that it was like a blessing. It was a spiritual blessing of a saint or something. It's like, "You have it. You have it. You might not see it now, but you have what you need." And he did. Through his trials and his misgivings and his mistakes, there were mistakes that he made, especially concerning Sabayoth. And a little bit, he got into a little bit of trouble with Mara Jade too, because he still had that good heart to want to redeem everyone. So even if he got into skirmishes by his own misgivings and misleadings and all of that, or mistakes, I should say, that's fine. That's just a good plot for a sequel to what we had from the original trilogy. That's all well and good. And if it was a completely different story with different characters, but with the same trajectory, with the same spirit, I would have been fine with that too. It was the spirit of Luke Skywalker. It was the heart of Luke Skywalker, what those books preserved, that made it believable for him to set up the established new order, or for him to establish the new order. Why Ahsoka Tano is really problematic, and where people are theorizing this idea of her teaching him because she's more experienced, she's older and more experienced, and therefore more knowledgeable of the Force, if not more powerful. Why this is such a problem is this real tragedy that Ahsoka Tano is not necessary. Rather than have her own compelling story as a Force user somewhere in the Star Wars universe, they had to make her so inherently linked to Anakin Skywalker. I mean, it's even touched upon in Rebels. I didn't see the show, but I've seen scenes with her where she struggles, where she feels guilt that Anakin turned to the dark side because she left him. That is not true. He turned to the dark side simply because he thought he could protect his wife from death. That's it. It's not more complicated than that. Maybe a feeling of betrayal by Obi-Wan Kenobi. But even Padme came first before Kenobi in the way of his going down to the dark side, falling to the dark side. Ahsoka has no business feeling guilty that she caused this monster of her old master. And that, with her being pulled into the timeline, world between worlds thing, and keeping her alive, that's what's causing her to be an actual conundrum in the heart and story and universe of Star Wars, rather than her having a very compelling arc that is separate, away from Anakin Skywalker, and even away from Luke Skywalker. She should have had her closure at the end of season 5 and done her own thing and be a good character, be a good Force user, be her own protagonist in her own way. But now they made it so like as if she's like a daughter, you know? The Star Wars channels and Dave Filoni, they are active. Whether these Star Wars channels whether they know it or not, they are being so active in trying to make Ahsoka Tano as important as Padme and as important as Luke Skywalker. And the problem with that is not so much like I feel jealous for Padme or I feel jealous for Luke Skywalker. That's not it. Not as a fan. I'm not saying it. I'm speaking this out of jealousy. By making her as important as Padme or Luke Skywalker, you're having a hard time fitting her in the narrative in a comprehensible, believable way. That's the problem. The tragedy of Ahsoka Tano is she's become unnecessary in the story because she's not necessary to train Luke Skywalker. No matter what stories of Luke Skywalker happens, no matter what adventures he has, whether it's the Thrawn Trilogy or something totally different, even if they adapted a Luke Skywalker series after the Return of the Jedi that had nothing to do with Thrawn or all the things that happen in the Thrawn Trilogy, he could still on his own be qualified. He's the only one qualified to establish this new Jedi Order. As I said before, why? because practically he's got Force Ghost, Obi-Wan, and Yoda, maybe Anakin too, after his redemption. But morally speaking, he earned that right by redeeming someone and effectively destroying evil at the same time. So that's what I wanted to talk about is first of all, this tragedy of Ahsoka Tano, who people are not knowing this, and this is what's grieving me, and this is probably one of the, unless something comes up or I feel compelled to talk about Star Wars, this will probably be one of the last times I talk about anything related to Disney Star Wars, because it grieves me that people think she's this most amazing character, and Filoni himself, the man who created this character, has rendered her effectively unnecessary in the narrative because he had to make her so important to Anakin Skywalker. When Anakin already had important people, he had Padme, he had Obi-Wan, and ultimately he had Luke Skywalker, his son. He actually didn't need Ahsoka Tano, apart from her being a Padawan that he loses later, which is good. It's good he would have that in his past, but she's not necessary in terms of his future importance, in the way she's not necessary in terms of Luke Skywalker's future importance. I mean, I'm not against her meeting Luke Skywalker on a whim, like, "Oh, hey, wow. Oh, you're the son of Anakin," and stuff like that. But it's only going to be for 3 reasons, 3 predictions. These are gonna be 3 theories and predictions of my own. The first prediction in theory I thought might happen. I don't think it will happen. I thought this about a year ago or so, or maybe 6 months ago. I thought if I'm not saying it's impossible. This could be likely. The first prediction is Ahsoka will actually persuade Luke to to convince him, persuade him to turn his father to the light side. To I can't do it. You have to do it. No, don't doubt. You have to do it. Redeem your father. I couldn't, but you can. That might be a likely scenario. I don't think so. I thought that would be the case. I'm suspecting not. The prediction I know will definitely happen is they want Ahsoka, because fans are saying it all over the map. They want Ahsoka and Luke to meet so Ahsoka can have closure of Anakin Skywalker. That makes sense, narratively speaking. I'm fine with that. What I'm not fine with is, oh, well, we've got this now. This is so special. This is such a special moment. Let's have Ahsoka train Luke Skywalker. That's the third prediction where I would say that's my theory, because you know why? Because major channels, and Disney's aware of it, and Lucasfilm is aware of it, major channels are saying this. They're saying, what if Ahsoka teaches Luke? It's like, why? She doesn't need to. She has no business to. That's again, it's tragic. Rather than being compelling, she's actually an inconvenience because she's not necessary. They have made her, the writers have made her unnecessary. And that's the worst thing you can do to a character, is make them unnecessary. She could be necessary in another thing. She's not necessary in Luke's trajectory, in his future. So that ties in with Luke Skywalker's legacy. If Ahsoka trains Luke Skywalker, you've stripped Luke Skywalker of his complete legacy, going all the way back to the original trilogy with the Return of the Jedi. It's done. It's rendered ineffective. Because it's like, oh yeah, and people would say, oh no, it's good enough that he redeemed his father and destroyed the Emperor by renouncing evil and shunning the Emperor. That's good enough, right? It's like, not if there's future stories involving him, because he's earned the right. He's the hero. It's really beautiful because he's the antithesis of his father, Darth Vader, who turned to the dark side, where everyone thought he was going to bring balance to the Force, and he did in ways. It's kind of like in ways, God works in mysterious ways. Well, it's kind of a mysterious way in the world of Star Wars, because it's like Yeah, he did bring balance to the Force, but, what was it, like 20, 25 years later, I as first an evil man being redeemed by his son to overthrow the Emperor. So, if anyone has the right to establish a new Jedi Order, it's Luke Skywalker. People would fight me on that. They would say, "No, no, no, we Ahsoka has the right to do it too because she walked away from the Jedi. She knew it was wrong." It's like, well, that's part of her story. But notice, there were things affirming like, "Oh, Ahsoka, you're the Jedi that they should be." I think that was like in the middle arc of season 7. It's like this constant affirmations like, "Oh no, no, she was saved by the daughter of is it Mortis or something like that? She has a special connection with the Force itself. She should be the one." It's like she might have this Force privilege, but oh, how can you say that? She died. I'm like, well, Luke almost died too. No, I'll call it Force privilege. So she might have this Force privilege, but morally speaking, the keys are given to Luke Skywalker. So anyway, I wanted to get that off my chest. There's more to talk about really on the external side, not so much even the inside the world of Star Wars, but yeah, there is a little bit more to talk about outside the world of Star Wars in the fandom. Um, I think I'm going to be so bold to say this. Um, these Star Wars channels that for a time I had respected, if they're fine with Ahsoka teaching Luke, if they think that's gonna be the most amazing thing in the world, and that's gonna be such a fan service, if they're fine with that, they're fine with effectively stripping Luke Skywalker of his legacy. So as long as you're fine with that, keep consuming the new stuff. But I can't. I've decided that I can't I can't be okay with seminal, iconic figures in the real world and in the fictional world. I can't be okay with their legacies being stripped on a whim, as it is the case with J.K. Rowling, and with Luke Skywalker. This was planned. This was years in the making. Where it's like, no, we have to make a character as important, if not more important, than Luke Skywalker because I made that character. Now, I've said this before. I do believe in. I'm going to give it a window, and I probably won't be alive to see this happen. So if you see this on YouTube or floating around on the internet 60, 70, 80 years later, then I was right. But I don't even know if I'm going to be right because I don't know if I'll live as long as to see this happen. Or it could happen so fast, depending on how this culture is going. But I do believe with this needing to remove the legacy of J.K. Rowling for her controversial tweets, I do believe it can be very effective that people, that fans, supposed fans of Star Wars will actually commemorate and don the mantle on Dave Filoni that he is the creator of Star Wars and not George Lucas. I actually think I'll make an estimate. I would say 80 years down the road. I feel like that's even too generous. Like I'm gonna say between 40 and 80 years down the road, if Star Wars is still going on, and I don't think it will be, to be honest, with the writing I saw with Dave Filoni, if they keep doing that forever, I don't think Star Wars will have the cultural impact it used to. Um, but if it does, I suspect that Dave Filoni will be remembered for Star Wars, for creating Star Wars, actually creating Star Wars, not creating the Clone Wars, or being the creative head of that television series. I actually think if we keep doing what we're doing and consuming mindlessly all the gems and all the shiny baubles of all these things that they're churning up as a distraction, then people are going to be fine, and people's children are going to be fine with saying, "Oh no, isn't it Dave Filoni that started Star Wars?" That's what's going to happen. That's what's going to happen. So it's inside the world of Star Wars and stripping, having someone like Ahsoka Tano strip Luke's legacy. And then it's the meta of it where Dave Filoni will be remembered, and George Lucas in some form or another, he might be seen as problematic. Maybe on a whim, they're like, "Oh, we don't like what he says in this article or in this tweet or in this interview. I don't like that. Let's yeah." And then it'd be an easy fix. I was like, "Oh, well, let's just bolster Dave Filoni. Let's just remember him for creating Star Wars." So in the way of J.K. Rowling, her own franchise denouncing her, I think the fans unwittingly, I don't think on purpose, but unwittingly, over time, consuming all this stuff, especially with Ahsoka, I think over time they are going to effectively remember Dave Filoni as the sole creator of Star Wars. Especially if they stop reading the EU, especially if they put the EU in the past. But even without the EU, I just don't think George Lucas's legacy will last. That's how malleable it is. That's how frightening it is, to be honest. I mean, I'm an artist, and I would suppose that my stories that I created would be remembered, and my name would be still attached to that. But the way the culture is going, the way politics are going, the way people are still going to be fine with watching Disney shows after they're so enraged that Kathleen Kennedy had her contract extended, supposedly. I knew that was going to happen. But that people still sincerely believe that she's the sole problem of Star Wars, that she's the only problem of Star Wars. I'm not saying she's not a problem, but she is not the only person. And then apparently, the Mandalorian actor has been saying some very condemning things in politics. Do we want to support people like that? I can't, just based on my own conscience. But anyway, those are my thoughts. So I'm glad I got that off my chest. So hopefully you enjoyed that. I'd like to see your comments, and we'll see how you've taken this. Oh, cool. Not too many comments, and I actually have passed the 2-hour mark, and it's 11:30. So we'll go through comments and then we'll wrap it up. Oh man, that got me thirsty. Nice, Team Ghost. We recorded Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. We're watching that, Prof and me, for Christmas. Daniel Craig says something interesting. I'm a Luke Skywalker fangirl. Nice. Welcome, Hernandez. Want to hear an art joke? Why did the artist go to jail? Because he was framed. That's a good joke. Actually, that's a really good joke. That's a joke that makes sense, and therefore it's funny. Let's see. Dr. Y says, if you think Star Wars is bad with tackling on stuff or tacking on stuff, you should see how bad the Lion King franchise is strung together. Nice. I wish I knew what that meant, but maybe it's because I'm getting a little tired. What? But Siege of Mandalore made the prequels make sense. Ahsoka is our champion because Twitter didn't like her casting. Ahsoka the White forever. Why in the world is she called Ahsoka the White? Just because she wears white doesn't make her Ahsoka the White. This is not... Have a different title, please. Like how about Ahsoka the White Sentinel or something? Not just the white by itself, because that's obviously to Gandalf and to Saruman before him. Frank says, I'm too old. I hate CGI. It's ruined sci-fi. It's made movie making lazy and unrealistic looking. Yeah, it's kind of. I don't watch a lot of movies. I would say for the capacity for the computer processing that people have now with animation, I feel like they would have the ability to make things way more believable looking. Like, I do love the look of the visual art of, the Lord of the Rings films, but I did not care for the look of The Hobbit. It just did not look like The Hobbit to me. I actually didn't care for those movies. I'm not talking about the Rankin and Bass, I'm talking about, what was his name? Christian Rivers and Peter Jackson? Um, and Christian Rivers, if it's the same guy I'm thinking about, he actually worked on set, with Peter Jackson on the original films. Dr. Weiss says other Jedi survivors do not make sense canonically. Yeah, I mean, yeah, they're kind of stretching that. I mean, I'm not completely against some Force users or Jedi surviving, um, but again, I'm also not against only Kenobi surviving and then the twins being born. Oh, and Yoda, of course. Go Team says Luke married Mara Jade later on. Yes, he did. I think we'll be reading those books for the book study later. Ahsoka should have been someone else's Padawan, not Anakin's. I'm not against her being Anakin's. At the same time, him without a Padawan also makes sense because it would make more sense for him to have a Padawan, whoever it is, after he's been uh, ceremoniously taken in as part of the Jedi Council or Jedi, yeah, Jedi Master, that status. That's why it made absolutely no sense for Anakin to just give Ahsoka the squadron in Siege of Mandalore because it's like he has no authority to make that call, not at all. Yeah. No, oh my gosh, you raised a really good point, Dr. Y, and I talked about this too. I even have this as a separate video on my Siege of Mandalore playlist, where you are so right. Um, there was a just constant, "Am I a Jedi? Am I not a Jedi?" in the Siege of Mandalore, and then of course that's the famous thing, "I'm no Jedi" line out of the Rebels. Okay, so I made this I made this known before my previous writing commentary on the Siege of Mandalore, where she's a Jedi when it's convenient, and she's not a Jedi when it's convenient. That back and forth just does not work. It would not work in the training of Luke Skywalker anyway. So if this happens, if she ends up training Luke Skywalker, Filoni has completely contradicted one of the key elements of his own original character, and that is she's not a Jedi. I'm fine with her being a very powerful Force user, but she's not a Jedi. That role belongs to Luke Skywalker. And maybe they'll kind of cushion it. It's like, well, no, she's not really setting up the order. Like she's just kind of giving him little tips and tricks. It's like it's kind of the same thing. But again, she doesn't need to because Luke finds that out for himself. I'm still passionate about this, apparently. Final Fantasy fan says, I couldn't have said it more myself. Thank you. Appreciate it. Daniel Craig says, who's Ahsoka? I don't remember her from the 6 Star Wars movies, but just give it time, Daniel. Give it time. All these Star Wars channels, they are trying to find a compelling reason why she's absent from the original trilogy. So if they're already doing that, they're gonna try to even with her absence, put her in the original trilogy. As my beloved prof says, in definitely 10 years, but it's pretty much happening now. They have made Star Wars become the Ahsoka Tano story. It's gonna be all about her. All about her. That's right. Go Team Ghost Planet Go. To quote the professor, consume responsibly. Yeah, consume stories responsibly. So the prof and I are just thoroughly enjoying the Agents of Shield. We just finished season 2, and then as kind of like a real late night unwinding, uh, we were going through the episodes of the original Thundercats, and I am totally fine with going back to inspirational stories of old. I don't, unless there are more events like the Ghostbusters Afterlife, I just don't feel the need to have new stuff. But I've never had that need. I've never had that compulsion. Not with iPhones, because I've never had an iPhone. But when our culture says, "Oh, you have to have the next thing," my computer here, it is all about function. This computer, I have all my devices actually. Well, except my phone, and that's a little older too. But all my devices are at least 7 years old. Yeah, my computer's 11 years old. I have an old actually, I think I checked that laptop finally, but that laptop was, like, 15 years old. So, I don't need new stuff in the way of products, so I don't need new stuff in the way of entertainment. Oh, Big Al, I'm definitely playing this song for my Christmas stream. I love that song. It's one of my favorite Christmas songs. It's a very simple song with very, very simple lyrics. There's just something so nice about that song. What did the painter what did the paint say to the other paint? Don't use that tone with me. It's kind of cute. All right. Dr. Y's like, no, I'm the dad jokes guy here. uh, all right, we'll get through the comments and then wrap it up. Dr. Y says Disney made a Lion King TV series based on the first and second movie that gave Simba and Nala a second cub who was not in the second movie. I didn't know that. I knew about the Timon and Pumbaa series. I think I saw that series as a kid. I didn't know anything about that. Oh, interesting. Is that must be new then? That must be recent because I didn't hear anything about that. Craig Wagner raises a good point. What if it's Luke who helps Ahsoka become a Jedi? He completes her training. How would you feel about that? I'd be fine with that. Yeah, I'm not. Some people think she should have perished before the original trilogy, and I think narratively that would have made more sense in the way of story. Um, I'm not against her being around, as a powerful force user. Um, I just don't want her to interfere with Luke's legacy. So, let's say she happens upon Luke as he's establishing this Jedi Order, and she discovers, oh, you're Anakin's son, and then he tells her the story. Cool, that would be fine in my book. That'd be absolutely fine in my book. If Luke is the new head, if he's the leader, if he's the first Jedi Master of this new order, awesome. I would have no problem with her completing her training. It kind of makes more sense because she actually never, unless Filoni's writing her, she actually never had her training complete anyway. So it'd be kind of cool. I mean, that actually is a cool concept where she didn't finish her training with Luke's father, and then she finishes her training with Luke. That's cool. That's a great concept. That ain't gonna happen. She's just too special in the heart of these new content creators. I just don't see that happening at all. Oh, okay. So Dr. White's saying it was the Lion Guard. It's focused toward younger kids. Interesting. Yeah, actually, Ahsoka becoming a Sith. That's actually there was it on Twitter? There was a concept art of Ahsoka wielding a dark blade, and it looked pretty good. Like she had that kind of red glow on her skin instead of orange, it's kind of like reddish. I forgot I, uh, what the Togrutas. I forgot what that kind of head structure they have. I forgot what that was called, the technical term, but it kind of had a red sheen to it. And actually, artistically, it was a very good art piece. Um, it was taken down because someone in the higher ups, in that circle of higher ups, couldn't take the fact that someone conceptualized a dark Ahsoka Tano, a Sith Force user, Ahsoka Tano, and I don't know if the art piece was ever put back up on the internet. I'm sure it's around there somewhere. To be honest, I want to see if I can find it. Dark Sith Ahsoka Tano. No, it's just kind of concept art. Oh, where was it? I bet there's a lot of dark Sith Ahsoka Tano renditions if you just look it up. So they can't contain that. They can't censor all of that art. I mean, I don't need Ahsoka to be a dark Sith or Sith, but yeah. Anyway, um, yeah, that's actually no, that's I think that's the impetus, Dr. Y. I think it started it all. I know exactly what piece you're talking about because I saw it myself. In fact, actually, I think someone posted on the Professor Geek Facebook group page when it was a different format where we can all post. I'm not on Facebook anymore. Um, and he took it down, and people could contend with that and say you can't take that down. That's art. That's censorship. First of all, it's his platform, so he can do whatever he wants with it. But the second is that art piece was the impetus. That and another piece of art that was shared on the Facebook group page. And it's not like Disney isn't watching. Disney knows. Disney knows what the fans are saying. They're selective. See, that's the thing with Disney is people might decry, oh, Disney's not listening to the fans. They listen to the fans selectively. If what the fans want fits their narrative, they're going to do it. And I think the fans want what I've been talking about, with Ahsoka training Luke. But anyway, it is getting late. It is way past my limit, and I gotta do a couple things before hanging out with the prof. So I think that's that. Let's go ahead and plug a couple things. I first wish you guys a very, very happy Thanksgiving, and I think I'll be doing something with the prof tomorrow, as far as streaming goes. If all goes well, all goes according to plan. And also, just kind of throwing this out there right now, the prof and I actually are starting a new channel that is really going to be faith-based. It's going to be talking about our just Christian walk and biblical principles on life, and that goes into what we think what's happening in the world with art and politics. But it's not going to be so much geek-centered. It's not going to be so much music centered as you see it with Sound Engraver with me, and then of course geek centered content with the prof. It's going to be more just insight on his perspective as a Catholic and me as a non-Catholic, but as a couple as well. So we're going to be doing that, and it's going to be called. I think he's including the article but it's going to be called the Set Apart Podcast. And we'll actually launch a video definitely by January, definitely by the start of the year. But we're going to launch a video, and I think we're going to start that first video of why we're calling it Set Apart. So that's gonna be great. We're just gonna put in some insight, just for people who have questions about different things regarding the faith and the Bible, what the Word God says. But we'll probably be geeking out too. Not like strictly geek related content, but that's just who we are. Me and music, art, and his with his literature, but not extensively. It will be pretty much faith centered there. So I think he's somewhat set up the channel today. So we'll get that launched and going within the next month or so. So that will be good. Could have called it S or M&M. Yeah, well, it's true. So that's the plug. I got a Super Collider video coming out tomorrow, and then we'll be taking a break. I might put up some commentary into the weekend, but it'll probably be more of a break. And yeah, I no book studies from Catholic Bible Geek or the Professor Geek. Obviously, Thanksgiving, and he has that week off, so we're just gonna spend time resting and enjoying the holiday of Thanksgiving. So thank you guys so much. Thank you for just hanging out and really being so interactive with the chat. I really do appreciate it. It means a lot to me. My weekly streams will continue. Obviously much more about art, but hopefully some other news related to art, to the art world, and all of that. So anyway, I wish you guys a phenomenal Big Al. You mean I read for nothing? Hey, I finished the Two Towers, so I'm all caught up. But anyway, we miss you, Al. Always love hearing Al's voice on the book studies. But until I see you next, keep producing and preserving the good art, the good, wonderful art you love. And I will see you next time. Thanks again.